Hello! Today we are here to discuss Tigo.
No, it's pronounced Tigo. I looked it up.
Tigo. Okay.
Tigo.
So this is a game from my youth that I have had in the collection since 1986. And
So it came out of the vault?
it came out of the vintage vault. So the reason I know I had it since 1986, because, well, one, it was released that year, but my mom had to send in for a replacement for one of the Tigers that was broken, and they actually sent me a full set of all the metal pieces as a replacement again. So excellent customer service back in the day.
Absolutely.
So, of course, my mom's pretty convincing. She was here.
You will send us.
That's right. Yeah, she would write very convincing letters to people back in the day. Before we get started, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, because you want to see more classics from the vintage vault. From the vintage closet.
The vintage closet.
The vintage vault. Whatever.
The old stuff.
Yes, the old stuff. We got lots of
older than him stuff.
Not this one, but
not this one.
Yeah,
we
close.
There's some games older than you.
I think I was 14 when I got this one.
Well, this version of it. So
yeah, the game itself.
Yeah, so let me go into that.
Yeah,
so Tigo is known by multiple names because this game is like thousands of years old, and so it's known as Tu King Bong Chol. There's no designer because Lord knows who designed this a couple thousand years ago. This version was published by Pressman Games in 1986, but I did find a copy of this version, if you're interested in it, after we talk about it, for $35 on Noble Knight Games.
Wow.
That's the only copy I could find. Didn't find it on eBay or anywhere else.
Wow.
This is a two-player abstract game, and I love abstract, so I was really excited to do this. It is ranked on Board Game Geek at 8,728, overall rate of a 6.1. Plays in about 20 minutes.
Yep. All right, so let's talk about what you get in the box. So first of all, you get these incredibly well done miniatures that are metal.
Yeah. Hopefully, we're hoping they're not made out of lead while we're playing with it. So.
Given the fact that toys back in the day,
people didn't care as much about
children so much back then. So yeah,
but I think they're pewter, maybe with a little bit of a brass finish to them.
Yeah, well, probably it did have. It's kind of worn off a bit. They were probably a bit shinier back then. And then you get the board itself is kind of basic. There's nothing special to it, but it's very reminiscent of what you would have found in a 1980s game.
Well, it's a small Chinese chessboard.
Yeah.
So like a Go board, which is much larger, but it's reminiscent of a Chinese chessboard.
Yeah, and as we talk about the gameplay of this, there's elements of checkers and chess melded into this game. And it's for the time period, this is very unique in the sense that you got a storage bag that's got a screen printing on it with the name logo on it.
Never saw this back in the day.
And there were storage trays. Inserts that you had back then for each individual metal piece, which was very, very rare. So I think they've done it for the time period. It's an excellent job. And the metal is held up. I mean, yes, this coating is worn off a bit. They're not nearly as shiny.
But they look like tigers. They look like goats. And you're not just metal blobs.
Yeah, and I put them in this bag and kept them in there for all this time. I didn't store them in the nice racks. Although the extra pieces, when they sent me the replacement set, thanks to my mom, they were stored. Those were stored nicely. But the ones that I played with were in the bag, and they didn't fall apart. So, given that, I think they've got excellent material, excellent quality. It's hard because you can't really compare it to today's quality.
Even though you try doing that on other reviews.
Well, Miranda does it more than I do.
But still,
I try to be fair.
I try and be honest for when the game comes out.
Given the fact that I'm comparing this to what you see in other games from back then, I'm going to probably give it a 7.5.
I'm definitely way higher. The metal, I mean, you didn't see, unless you were playing like old school war game miniature games, you didn't see metal miniatures.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely an 8, at least an 8. It's the minis themselves are worth that score. They're awesome.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the theme. So this is completely layered on.
Sure. It's an abstract, but 100%.
But the hunting aspect of it makes sense for what the actions are doing.
And it makes a lot of sense.
And it's very reminiscent of what the animals would do.
Yeah.
I mean, how they would fight. The tigers would be kind of lone hunters trying to take out the weakened and the isolated.
And the goats team up, and
Right.
to be able to take it out.
So yeah, it's very reminiscent of how the animals would react.
Right.
So I think they thematically chose
That makes sense.
animals well. And so, the gameplay is definitely intrinsically involved with the creatures that are in it, but it could be any kind of creatures, really.
It could be, yeah.
And, I'm sure in probably, the ancient game, it was probably just stones. There probably weren't actually.
Probably different color stones
that
represent each one.
So, given the fact that it's a complete abstract, it's hard to really say what the theme was, but I do think that it should get some points for the fact that they chose animals that met the same conditions of how the pieces move.
And not only that, I think that during that time period, you would have tigers and you would have goats in China. So that makes sense.
So I do want to point out also that this game has got variable player powers, which is something you didn't see back then.
Right.
Because, you've got the goats take their actions and have victory conditions that are completely different than what the tigers do.
Yeah.
So, given all that, I'm probably going to go ahead thematically and give this 6.5, even though it's not really, intrinsic to the game. But it is interrelated to the different animals that they chose for it.
I think 6.5 is a good score, and I think that's a good score for any abstract, because that's the whole point of an abstract, is that it lacks theme.
Yeah.
So I think 6.5 is good.
So moving on to the rule book. So the rule book is a rule page. It's just a half sheet folded over. But yeah, the rule book it's very reminiscent of what you would find in the 80s for a game like this. The rules are pretty clear. They're black and white, literally. Right. And there's some nice pictures for like the board showing how moves happen. One thing that we did miss, though, when we were setting up is that the setup of the tigers is actually in one of those illustrations. It wasn't called out anywhere in the actual text. But yeah, the tigers start on the four corners of the board.
And then I go, as goats, I just take unoccupied spaces.
Yes, and your pieces can't move until you've played them all, whereas mine start moving immediately.
Because he's a hunter.
That's right. So we're on the prowl. As soon as goats get out there, we're smelling fresh meat.
That's right.
So, it does an effective job of communicating, but it's a real simple gameplay as far it's one of those things that's easy to learn.
Which is what makes abstracts so good.
Yeah.
The good classic abstracts are really easy to set up and teach, but there's so much depth to them.
As far as strategy.
Yeah, as far as the strategy and tactics.
So, as far as the rulebook goes, it does a fine job. It's not pretty. It's just a very basic rule book, but it does communicate well. I wish it was a little clearer on the setup. I think it could have called it out a little better than just to have it in an illustration and not be in actual main text, especially when you have a setup section that clearly tells you how the goats come on the board.
Sure.
So I'm going to go ahead and probably give this one a 6.5. I mean, it's fine for the time period. It's just a bit dated, I think, more than anything.
And that just tells you that rule book writing sucked back then as much as it does now. So.
All right, so moving on to gameplay. So as we mentioned, the tigers start in the four corners on the board, and there would be no goats at the beginning of the game on the board. So each turn, as Rob gets the first move as the goat, he gets to place a goat on the board, and he's probably not going to want to put.
So I'm not going to put it like right in front of the tigers, because then he can immediately jump.
Because the tigers take their victims by actually jumping like a checkers move over the goat and removing it from the board. Goats, however, play it more like a chess move, where I'm the king in a chess move, and you're trying to surround me, in essence, get me into checkmate, if you will.
So I'm going to go at least one away so that he can't jump me.
So then I would take my turn, and I would move to try to pursue him.
Yeah. So I'm going to put one here, because then if there's two goats, that's the process of starting to corner them in, because you can't jump over two goats.
So now these are now safe from my pursuit, and pretty much on the sides in this game, you're going to be safe when you're on the border. So it's good for you as a goat to try to conquer the borders, much like Othello.
Right, but the end game, he only has to capture 6 of my goats.
Right.
I have to corner to where he can't move at all. His 4 tigers.
Right, and that's easier said than done.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and move out here. So now I can't move jumping off the board, so he's still safe. Just trying to get myself so I don't get cornered, but I also don't want to abandon the corners because I'm afraid that's going to set you up. So I'm going to move over here. And there's lines drawn on the board all different directions, so you can kind of see which move in any of the different angles, but you always have to follow a line when you're moving.
Right.
So I think you've learned from your mistakes of the first game. First rule: don't go in the center of the board. So yeah, I'm going to end up getting myself in a situation where I'm probably going to have to start moving around the inside. But for now, I'm trying to stay on the outside. But it's very basic moves like this. I'm trying to get us to a situation where we actually have an attack. Okay, so now I'm going to move back here. So now Rob's in a quandary because he's got a goat that's exposed. If he blocks it over here, then I have a tiger over here that can jump and take the one he blocks it with.
But if I don't go here, then this tiger can jump there and take.
So he's basically going to have to sacrifice that goat because putting it here is just a death trap because I jump and that's now exposed again and it becomes this permanent. So pretty much that goat is dead at this point. So,
but it might be a ploy on how to try and manipulate him into going where I need him to go.
Right. So now, again, I've got a situation where I've got two that I can take. So it's very much like checkers where you're trying to set yourself up to force your opponent into a situation where you can't block both paths. And very much also like tic-tac-toe.
Right.
So, yes, so you have saved that one. But I'm already I'm 1/3 of the way.
1/3 of the way.
And you've got a bad situation going on here.
I really do.
So, I mean, we could continue playing this, but you get the concept here because now, I'm picking him off left and right because he's in a bad situation again because, this is one of those things.
This one's better. This one's better because now I can go here.
Yeah, at least you're preserving that, but I can go here.
Right.
But you're already 4 out of your 6 gone now, so you're.
And so, I'm going to probably lose this game. But that's the other beauty part about abstracts is that generally I stink at them first, but the more I play them, the better I learn, and then I get better at it.
Yeah.
Like my dad and I played Othello a lot growing up. I stunk at first, but I got better at it.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite games. I love Othello.
But I don't get to play these kind of games as much as I'd like, but I know Rob loves them. So whenever we have a situation where Miranda's not here and we have just the two of us, I try to get one of these out because I know he likes them.
We both like them and I like them a lot.
And I actually have a lot of these in my vault that I never get to play. So whether it be an abstract or a 2-player like classic game, I've got several war games that are 2-player as well. We've already got Axis and Allies, the 2-player version that we got out that one time. But I've got several other ones that I'd like to get out to the table. So,
I've never got to play this. I'm glad Randy got it out. I loved it. I want to look for it. I might buy that copy on Noble Knight Games.
So
I really like it.
What do you give it as far as a rating?
I'd give it an 8. It's a solid abstract game. It's got a lot of depth. It's one of those games that's going to reward you with multiple plays, and I love that in the game. So it's something that you can really learn and build off of it. It's a solid game.
Well, I'm a little. It's like I feel like I'm biased on it because of the fact that I grew up with it, and it brings sentimental memories back of playing this as a child. So when I rate it, I'm probably going to go ahead and give it an 8 as well. The gameplay of it is fairly basic.
It is.
But I think there is a lot of meat to it. And there's the tactile aspect of moving the metal tigers and
it's very satisfying.
It is. Apart from the fact that we might be getting lead poisoning while we're doing it. We hope not. But you never know with games.
We only played it a couple times, so we should be all right.
Yeah. If we start growing third eyes or something like that, we'll know. But I think that it's definitely something, if you like abstracts and you haven't heard of this before, check it out. That game copy that is out there on Noble Knight may not be there by the time you get out there if Rob has his way. So, yeah, but look for it.
Yeah.
And it is, one of those hidden gems from back in the 80s that, there's.
Or you might even find other versions of it because, like I said, it's under multiple names. So you might be able to find one that's maybe not as nice of a version, but it's still the same game. Or
Yeah. Now, there was a game out there you saw that was called Tigo, but it was a totally different.
Yes, it had like multiple colors and a completely different game.
Yeah.
So just be aware of that.
Yeah. So that's our thoughts on Tigo. If you've had a chance to play this back in your youth or you still have it, let us know.
And what strategies? Maybe you can say, hey, Robert, you should have done this because you're ding dong. And they're like, well, that's a good point.
Yeah. Or if you had any abstracts from the back in the 80s or, any of the old classics.
Pente, Othello,
Go. Yeah, those are the ones everybody knows. If there's like a hidden gem in the abstract world that you have. I've got Inside Moves is one I've got. It was almost brought up to the table this time, but it's another one from the Vintage Vault to share with you. So, all right. Well, that's our thoughts on Tigo. So, until next time, find you an abstract game and a partner to play it with. All right. Bye.
Bye.